In this chapter, Goldilocks and Jack have a secret wedding in the woods. And Mother Goose officiates. Okay. All right, everyone. If you still have your legs, please stand for the bride, Mother Goose said. The guests stood and turned to the back of the clearing. Red stayed seated until Alex pulled her up to her feet. A flock of sparrows perched high in the trees began to sing a beautiful ballad as Goldilocks appeared. She was stunning. She wore a simple but elegant white lacy dress with a long train. She was barefoot, and her golden locks of hair flowed all the way down to her waist. Wildflowers had been wrapped around the handle of her sword, and she carried it down the aisle like a bouquet. It was beautiful but lethal, just like Goldilocks. Despite all the gruesome guests, no one could deny that the ceremony had turned out to be beautiful. Goldilocks arrived at the pulpit, and she and Jack faced Mother Goose with tears of joy in their eyes. "Well, sit down already," Mother Goose ordered the crowd. Once they obeyed, she continued officiating. 7 years ago, whoops, wrong speech, sorry. Dearly beloved, we are gathered, God knows where, today, to celebrate the joining of these two wanted fugitives. Mother Goose turned to face Jack. "Jack, do you take Goldilocks, a woman charged with countless burglaries, breaking and entering, and running from the law?" "Don't forget attempted murder," Red called from the back of the pulpit. "I wasn't going to," Mother Goose said. "And attempted murder. To be your outlawfully wedded wife, in sickness and in health, in arrest and in imprisonment, until death do you part." There was no question in Jack's mind. "I do," he said, with the biggest smile he'd ever been seen with. Mother Goose turned to Goldilocks. "Goldilocks, do you take this man, a national hero whose reputation you single-handedly ruined, to be your outlawfully wedded husband, in sickness and in health, in arrest and in imprisonment, until death do you part?" Goldilocks had never looked so happy in her life. "I do," she said. "Well, in that case, let's get this thing over with," Mother Goose called out. "With the power semi-entrusted in me by the Happily Ever After Assembly, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the..." Before she could permit it, Jack and Goldilocks locked lips, and their crowd of guests cheered wildly. Once they were done kissing, they climbed astride Porridge and galloped back down the aisle and off into the sunset with Oats, following closely behind. That's Porridge's son. Mother Goose snapped her fingers, and a sign magically appeared over Porridge's back. It read, "Just married." Watching the wedding had Watching the wedding had somehow made all of Alex's fears and doubts about taking a walk with Rook go away. That's the boy she has a crush on. They're 14 now. Stuff's getting real. She wanted to be just as happy as Jack and Goldilocks one day, and she didn't care how many emotional obstacles she'd have to go through to get there. "All right, now everyone get out of here before I'm seen with you," Mother Goose said. "And to that ogre in the back, you still owe me 17 gold coins from our card game last week. I haven't forgotten." All the guests disappeared into the forest as quickly as they had appeared. Froggy joined Alex and Red in the center of the clearing and gave Alex an enormous hug. "Hello, Alex. It's always wonderful to see you," he said. "Lovely wedding, don't you think?" "It was beautiful," Alex said. "Don't you think it was beautiful, Red?" Red didn't respond. Her arms were crossed, and she was frowning in the direction Jack and Goldilocks had ridden off in. "Darling, what's wrong?" Froggy asked. "Didn't you enjoy the ceremony?" "I did," Red said unconvincingly. "Especially the dress, because it was mine. She stole it from me."